The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing. You're listening to Hoppe Hour.
Are you feeling classy today? Sit down, pour a glass of wine, and listen to Hoppe Hour.
You're tuned in to Hoppe Hour, an hour where Hoppe rants about something. Sit back and listen in. Hoppe Hour is on now. Hoppe Hour is on now.
What up? What is happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And this is a guy I grew up listening to. I would go to the library, open up the 106.7 WJFK Listen Live link, and I would listen to the Don and Mike show, and I was always a fan of Buzz Burbank. And you can hear him now on the RELM Network, as he is the host of the Buzz Burbank News and Comment podcast. Buzz is on the line. What's up, dude?
Hey, Ryan, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
How happy are you, man? I've been a big fan, dude, so I'm pretty happy to have you on.
Well, that's very kind of you. I appreciate that. It's an honor. The honor's mine.
Yeah, because I first couldn't find you online for the last year, but then I, of course, looked it up on Google, and I listened to your podcast whenever I'm at the gym, man. It's nice to hear someone speak their mind, but not force an opinion like you see on the cable news channels.
The greatest compliment to me, and, you know, I'm mostly liberal, I think, and I think people know that. They can certainly tell that. But I don't think I'm like crazy left. I don't think I'm that far left. I don't mean to be to degrade anybody. I don't think I'm an extreme in that regard.
Yeah.
I was raised in Kansas. I consider myself kind of common sense. And I try to, look for the best in people and that sort of thing. So that's just kind of my state of mind. And I don't always agree with the liberals, and I try to call that out too. But it's very nice to just keep it kind of like, I think the definition of journalism is to keep a journal. And this is my journal, nobody else's, just mine, of what's going on in the world. And it's great to be free of any kind of corporate influence or anything like that. So, yeah, buzzburbank.com to hear my show, and it's a free subscription on iTunes. And I'm really excited to be living in the Tampa Bay area now and hope to meet some new folks and pick up some Tampa Bay area listeners. I invite people to check it out. The greatest compliment I get, and I don't mean to ramble on, but the nicest thing I ever hear from anybody is, regarding what you said, is I hear from people who say, Buzz, I don't agree with your philosophy, but I love listening every day. And, oh, my gosh, you can't get a nicer compliment than that.
Yeah, like, I completely disagree with you on Uber, on what you said on the Kirk McEwen show, but I listened to the whole thing. If I was listening to a news talk channel and I heard someone talk about Uber, I would tune it out. But that's what I love about your approach to radio is, even if we don't agree with you, Buzz, you come with prep, and we can see where you're coming from.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. I hope so. And if that helps the discussion along somehow and makes people sort of look at it a couple of different ways, well, then I feel like I've done something good.
Now, what do you think about the whole cycle where we're offended by something every day? You've been in the media so long, so I'm guessing you've seen this progression where everyone's offended by everything. How bad is it getting with fake outrage?
Well, you're very opinionated as well, Ryan, and you and I don't always agree on all things. I would take issue with this, and it's something that I've been preaching on recently. It has become so easy to blame everything on political correctness. And I think what's happening is that people who've been beaten up on for so long in one form or another are finally saying, hey, you can't call me that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to listen to that. And you know what? I say more power to them. I say they're right. I mean, I try to conduct my life in a way where I don't set out, certainly, to offend other people. I may hurt someone's feelings, but I didn't do it on purpose. I try to be thoughtful of other people when I'm getting off of an elevator rather than stand there at the door blocking everyone else. If I don't know where I'm going, I step to one side to let other people by because I'm conscious of other people. And so I'm all about that. And here's an alarm going off to remind me to call your show. So I'm glad I made it just in time. So that's kind of my philosophy there. I think claiming, the problem is political correctness, it has become a cop-out. And it's a way of saying I shouldn't have to respect this other person's wishes.
But But what about the thing where media figures say something, Buzz, and then they are forced to say they're sorry? It doesn't really mean much. What do you think of that? When a media member says something, and then even though they're not sorry, they are forced to because of outrage the last 5 minutes. What about that?
Well, you and I think do agree about this, Ryan, and that is that neither one of us like fake apologies.
Yes.
I don't want to hear an apology that's just being given for the sake of trying to get the heat off or whatever. If that's all it's about, and there's no sincere sadness there. But you can tell. Like when David Letterman confessed that he'd been having sex with women who worked at the show.
Yeah.
And he did that on national television. He apologized right then and confessed right then and there, apologized right then and there, and tried to live his life according to better standards from that point forward. Well, that was a sincere moment. I accept, and I believe his wife has also accepted that apology. So sometimes we should accept the apology, but we can all tell. You can tell, I can tell, when the apology isn't sincere. We spot that right away, and I agree with you. That's BS. That shouldn't happen.
But the other part about fake outrage, I guess my definition is when a media member is forced to say they're sorry, or when we're mad over fucking coffee cups. I mean, that's just what bothers me is that's so last week. And I mean, we were mad about it for 2 days. Paris happens. Then we move on to Sheen getting HIV. I just think the news cycle is so scrambled now with social media. Like, I don't know why that was even a thing. Or remember the whole Confederate flag? We were mad about that for 2 minutes. That's what I mean by fake outrage as well. It's a wide topic, but
I'm not sure that's entirely true. It's a little bit cynical to think that everyone who appeared to be outraged wasn't. I think many people were. I continue to be concerned about the Confederate flag, and I know a lot of other people do too. They never faked it. They were happy to see that it had become a hot topic. It raised some hope that maybe something would be done about it. And sometimes this results in change, as we saw at the University of Missouri, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's always worth a try, and it's good that people get involved. And if people care and speak up, again, I think that's a good thing, and I think a lot of those people are sincere. You're right. Where we do agree is on this short attention span thing, and there is a lot of that. Now, the other thing I would take a little bit of issue with, I don't think people have moved on from Paris. I haven't. I don't think anybody else has. It's turned into a whole debate about whether we should accept Syrian refugees. This story continues to unfold, and Americans are very deeply involved in it and very, keeping up on France's revenge, Russia's revenge against ISIS, and the debate about Syrian immigrants here in the U.S. So those things haven't faded. I think Charlie Sheen will be quickly forgotten, as perhaps he should be at this point. But I don't think when people are afraid they're going to be attacked by terrorists, I don't think they're going to forget that anytime soon.
See, my thing is it might be different because adults, so like people over 40 are the ones that I respect when it comes to having the attention span to focus on the news. But don't you sort of see that kids my age, we just go from topic to topic to topic? That's what I noticed with the whole everybody in my age group.
I heard you talking about that, and on one hand, I'm glad that you're holding your generation's feet to the fire about this.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think it's unfair, again, to lump everybody in and say all millennials are even.
It's a lot of them, Buzz. It's an epidemic.
I don't know where you get that, because I see political groups forming, specifically of young voters, of millennials. I see millennials doing a lot of things in covering the news and seeing projects that they've started and campaigns. And I've seen their involvement. Millennials are the biggest campaign supporters of Bernie Sanders' run for the presidency. So I have to disagree with you. I think millennials are very involved. Now, do they have shorter attention spans than older people like me? Well, maybe, but no tip of the cap to my generation either, because our attention spans have gotten shorter too. And that's a combination of things. That's all the media and electronics that are available to us, which I love living in this space age. We're the Jetsons with all these fancy phones and such. But so I enjoy it very much. But there's a price for that, and we still haven't. It's still very new, really, and we haven't gotten used to it and developed the proper etiquette and common sense about them yet.
How weird is it for you, Buzz, how fast everything grew? 10 years ago, the best phone was the BlackBerry. Now it's the latest iPhone. In your whole life, how weird is it to see the progression over the last 10 years?
It's been glorious. And, Ryan, I mean, things are moving so quickly now that no one can keep up. I mean, you can pay attention maybe to your specific area, but somebody's always doing something. I read something today. They've invented a new LED light emitting diode. These new LED lights that we're seeing, and of course your TV set. Many TV sets, the dots are illuminated by LEDs. Well, now some guys have invented a brighter, cheaper LED. One of the things about them is they're a little bit expensive. This is going to dramatically cut the cost of everything from light bulbs to television sets. And it just every day something happens where we advance technologically. I think it's exciting and wonderful. It's a little scary. We have people like Stephen Hawking warning us about artificial intelligence. So we should probably begin to proceed a bit more cautiously at this point on certain things. But to see this explosion of technology exponentially faster every day has been a very exciting time. I love it.
I'm a bit nervous, though, because kids my age are losing social skills. We now text while we drive. We post dumb things online, and I think it's just going to get worse and worse, Buzz. What do you think?
Well, I hope it doesn't. It could, Ryan. But I don't know. I have faith in people. And I think that the technology is still new to all mankind, and we haven't really learned to properly harness it yet and put things in perspective. I hear more and more about people who are finding time to turn off their phones or set it aside and go do something else, beginning to make an effort to get out to meet real people. There are apps for that, where you can use your phone to go meet new people. But the point is, I think we're still finding our way, and that we will begin to be less attached to them. That would be my hope. I could be wrong, but it's something that I try to be cautious of. As much as I love the technology, I'm very careful to stay away from it for certain hours every day.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I turn off my phone whenever I go to the bars on the weekend. I'm not even saying I get drunk every time. It's just, why even put yourself in that situation? Because so much has happened.
You fear drunk texting or drunk calling? Or
not even that. Drunk tweets. Who would have thought that'd be possible? I mean, you tweet out one thing, and even if you get rid of it in a second, the tweet shows up. And I'm very cautious about what I put online, Buzz.
Well, good. You should be. That's a good thing.
I'm just nervous because, if you post one thing, you can lose your job. I mean, did you ever think we would reach this where 140 characters or less can get you canned?
Well, you should always be careful about what you say. No, I think that's probably a good thing, because if you've posted something that will get you canned, you shouldn't have posted it. That's just irresponsible.
Was there something in the 80s or the 90s that would be equivalent to that? Was it maybe AOL? Or is this just a new thing where you can get fired on the spot? Was there anything back in the day that was sort of like if you post a bad tweet?
Sure. Oh, there's always been something like that. If you listen, I don't know what case we're talking about here, but if you say something that's idiotic, if you say something that's insulting, then yes, you should be fired. And anytime it appears that you're representing a corporation and you say something like that, you've made the corporation look bad.
Yeah.
And now they have to apologize for whatever stupid thing you posted. So, no, it's only right, I think, that somebody be fired for posting something that's racist or sexist or just, I don't know. I try to think of other examples, insulting to a religion, whatever. I think the company has every right, if you've besmirched their name in some way, to let you go. I'm sorry, but it's true.
But what about it this way? Let's say someone who's sponsored by Coke tweets out a sexist joke and Coke drops them. With the short attention span we have, Buzz, let's say Coke shouldn't get rid of them because we're just going to move on the next day. That's what I love about this whole fake outrage over words is we just move on the next day. Do you know what I mean?
Not exactly, no. And if I'm Mr. Coca-Cola, and you should pretend for a moment that you're Mr. Coca-Cola, and someone has made your company look bad by doing that, do you think you can ever trust that person again?
That is a very good point, because that's what I love about talking to you is I never thought about that angle where they could lose the trust. If you post out a sexist joke, how can you believe that public figure a second time? I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. And so you really have a responsibility to play within certain reasonable boundaries. And I don't think there's anything unreasonable about not insulting people. I think if you could do if you're Don Rickles, you can do a certain amount of that for fun. If you're Don Geronimo, you can do a certain amount of that for fun. But the rest of us need to behave ourselves.
Do you think that the Don and Mike show, if you guys were to have begun now, would it have worked? Or with everybody being so uptight, would that genre of radio not work now in 2015?
Well, people are not as uptight as they were in the final days of the Don and Mike show. Believe it or not, broadcast standards have loosened quite a bit. However, I hear from people all the time, God, I miss that show. I wish we could have it back. I wish there was some way you could make it all happen again. Well, we can't. The world has moved on. We have moved on as individuals. You do something for a very long time and it goes very well, and sometimes it's just time to stop. There were other factors. There was the Janet Jackson nipple at the Super Bowl incident that set off a whole crackdown on decency in media, and that had an effect. But there were other things that happened. The tragic death of Don's wife in an automobile accident, and a change at the corporate level in radio where it was decided, hey, we can't afford shows with 5 or 6 talented people anymore. And they began to look at overhead and the bottom line, and the whole thing began to be run by CPAs instead of people who cared about broadcasting. And so a lot of things were happening that just said it was time to stop. And so that's what we did.
How did you get your foot in the door with the Don and Mike show?
Well, Don and I had worked together. It's an old story, been over many times, but he and I worked together back in Chicago and had admiration for each other. And the opportunity came up to work together again. I was looking for work. Don was in a position to make that happen, and he did, for which I'll always be grateful.
What are some of your favorite memories about being on that show for so long with its legendary run?
Well, it was an incredible experience. It was in many ways a wonderful experience. I think going back to like junior high school or something, I listened to a recording in the library because we didn't have internet then. So I couldn't listen to any shows. But I found in the library a recording of one radio show from 1939, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, a radio play that was made to sound like a real broadcast had been interrupted to report the landing of UFOs. And the drama and the way they played this out with acting and sound effects. I thought, oh, my gosh, I'd love to be a part of radio theater. And in the modern era, that sort of thing didn't exist anymore. But there was the Don and Mike show, and that was a bit of theater. And I remember, certain improv things that we did and other things that that really made it feel like that, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of it as much as doing the news.
And now, where did you get your foot in the door in radio?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get my first commercial job at a radio station, a top 40 radio station I'd grown up listening to, and began doing the news there, and it just kind of went from there. Before that, I'd worked at the college radio station, even though I hadn't been at the time. I was not enrolled at this university. They had a radio station. They needed people. I wanted the experience, and actually, I went in one day, and a disc jockey was on the air, and it was almost time for the newscast. But the guy who was supposed to do the news that Saturday morning on that public radio station, college station, didn't show up. He hadn't shown up yet. And I thought, well, I kind of know my way around the newsroom. I'd poked around them before and other places. And so I went into the newsroom and began assembling stories and categorizing them and sort of laying out so that when the guy finally got there, boom, it would all be laid out and make his job very, very easy to do, whatever he needed to do. Well, he never did show up. And the disc jockey said, well, why don't you do it? And so I did, and I did a pretty good job, and because this is what I was meant to do. And I got up and I opened the door of the booth after I finished the newscast, and the program director of the radio station, whom I hadn't met before, was standing there and said to me, "Who are you?" And so that was my first on-air radio broadcast.
How nervous were you? Were you in the zone, or did you have a few goof-ups during it? How did it all go down?
I don't recall any goof-ups. I don't recall, that doesn't mean I didn't make any, but I don't recall any. It wasn't the kind of thing like, oh, my God, I was horrible. I was fortunate enough not to have that experience. I was generally pretty pleased with what I'd done. It certainly was well prepared since I'd done all that work beforehand. So I thought it went very, very well. Was I nervous? Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah.
But I'm not a cocky person. I'm just not. I'm not. A lot of people in radio are very, very confident about themselves. I am not as much. I'm certainly not a braggart by any stretch of the imagination. But I knew before I did it that I knew what to do. I guess it was something I'd maybe practiced for or something. I don't know, but there was just never any doubt that I knew what to do and how to do it and how to make it sound like it's supposed to sound. And I did.
Isn't it weird when there might be a day you go into the podcast and you think you have nothing to talk about, or you go into that news broadcast and you think you might not do well. But once that mic turns on and you're live, or once you're on the podcast, that's when you are in the zone. Isn't it weird how radio, our minds just focus immediately?
Yeah, it is interesting. Like one of the things I enjoy about, and what I'm enjoying about talking with you, and by the way, I can't imagine you, Ryan, ever running out of anything to talk about.
Right.
I listened to your last show, and, you had several topics, and you were able to talk about them quite extensively and quite passionately. It was very clear to me that this was what you were meant to do. So congratulations on that. It's I love doing, and I'm glad you mentioned it earlier, the Kirk McEwen show at kirkmcewen.com, another RELM Network show. I'm on once a week. We'll be recording again tomorrow. Show usually drops on Friday, and it's a weekly show as opposed to my daily newscast, but at buzzburbank.com. I enjoy being on that show because we realize we're being recorded, so we're careful and try to be intelligent about what we say, and sometimes goofy. But it's guys talking, and really, I think the best kind of radio is guys talking, or people. I say guys when I say that, I mean people, because we have some wonderful female hosts as well, including Realm's Maria Alexander, a wonderful comedian in Los Angeles. But it's what we do. It's what we like to do, and it just becomes very comfortable, and we sit around and talk, and I think it makes for pretty entertaining stuff, especially when there are people who that are doing it who are the kind of people who should be doing it. Obviously, not all podcasts are good, and some are very unprofessional. But especially the ones that are done by either experienced professionals or people with that mentality, those are the good podcasts, in my opinion, because they bring a certain amount of skill to guys talking.
My thing with podcasts is one of the reasons why I bring on guys like you is because I look up to you and Kirk on what you did in radio, but I also want to network and get my name out there in the different cities that you guys are popular in, because there are so many podcasts out there. You have Adam Carolla and Kevin Smith. Those are the sharks, but then you have Hoppe Hour, the little guppy fish. And with all the shows out there, there are so many awful podcasts that are done in people's rooms. You have to figure out a way to make a name for yourself. Wouldn't you agree, Buzz?
Oh, well, you do the best you can, and you hope for the best. Really, the best thing you can do is just to be yourself and to be the best self you can be. And you know, people are either going to like it or they're not. But if you're not you, you're not going to be happy with it either.
Yeah.
So to me, it's about throwing it against the wall to see if it sticks. I've been lucky. It's stuck. You know, I've got so many thousands of loyal listeners, and I'm so grateful for that. It makes me want to do it even more every day. I'd probably do it if only 2 people listen, but I hope it never comes to that. Unfortunately, it has not.
Isn't it unreal to think that people actually listen to our podcast in a way that we're recording it? I'm talking to you right now. It's just a conversation, but isn't it unreal to think that people listen to your show and my show and it makes their day? Because to me, that's the ultimate compliment. We can do the shows for ourselves and to boost our egos, but at the end of the day, it's about the listeners.
Yeah, it really is. And sometimes I think we underestimate the effect the positive effect we can have on people. I just think of myself as a regular guy doing what he likes to do. And then when you hear from somebody who says, "Oh my gosh, your show," in reference to the old Don and Mike show, "Your show got me through my mom's cancer. Your show got me through my dad dying. Your show got me through a time I had no job," whatever. We got them through. We're just a stupid radio show. What did we do to help you? Well, I still to this day don't know. But gosh darn it, if it helps them, then I feel good.
I love when I go to events, and I'm not trying to grow an ego, but I'm on the Mike Calta show every Monday, and my podcast is growing. And isn't it awesome when a fan comes up and they want to pick, or they just want to say, "Oh, when you said that on the podcast, it made my day." Like, it's just the ultimate flattering comment, because there's times where I'm down on myself and I'm not sure if I want to keep doing it. But the fact that people listen via their cars or online, it really means the world to me.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing ever. And, you know, it's interesting you say that, because I think guys who do this, like you, like me, we sometimes get down. And when you see, you hear, read a comment like that, oh, my goodness, it's a lifesaver. And it not only brings you out of a down mood, a mood maybe, like you said, you're not sure if you want to keep doing it or not.
Yeah.
It not only brings you out of that, but it inspires you to try even harder and to do even better. And that's a wonderful thing.
Now, we're talking about nice comments when people are flattering, they boost our egos, they say how our show gets them through the day. But what's your take on the opposite factor, which is people that hide behind the keyboard like pussies and they just literally spew garbage? What is your take on this whole new phenomenon known as trolling?
Well, trolls are a reality, and I've been on the receiving end of that. But you know what? It went away. It goes away. You just, you have to. It is unfortunate. But the other thing I've found, Ryan, is you have to keep it in perspective. You know, they used to say, to those of us who are on the radio, when somebody calls your show, they represent less than 1% of your audience.
Yeah.
Somebody calls into your show and you put them on the air. That's a very, very active sort of listener, and they are the exception, not the rule, which means they are a very, very tiny, tiny, tiny minority. So what you have to remember is that there's always one heckler in the crowd. And in this case, it's more than one, but percentage-wise, it's less than one. And so we're talking about something that's infinitesimally small. And if you let that get you down, then the terrorists win.
Yeah, it's one of those things where whenever I'm recognized at events or whenever you've been recognized in life, maybe a few people are abrupt and they critique our show, or maybe when they're drunk, they then insult it. But the things that are said via Facebook or Twitter, Buzz, they would never say it to our face. That's what I'm beginning to learn about social media, is that it's a fake world.
Well, it's not entirely. I mean, I'm going to have to say, like Facebook, for example, I find, and I realize some of this is generational, is generally a supportive place. Yes, there are political arguments there, as there are currently. But I find that mostly it's a place where people support other people. And I think that's a wonderful thing. You got to look at what the majority does and not allow a minority of people make you cynical about all people. We're talking about punks, hooligans, thugs, ne'er-do-wells. These are, and they've always existed. It's just now that they can throw their eggs from behind a car where you can't see them, and so you don't know who they are. And they have that anonymity that makes them braver than they really are. But you just have to realize it means nothing. It is they're you look at product reviews online or something. If you read those, there's always one guy who's just a dick.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's clear that the problem is not the product, but the problem is the guy writing the review. And so you learn to skip that one and go on to the next review. Well, and not everybody's going to like or love what you do, and you kind of have to accept that too. But again, just to remember, it's a very small percentage of people. It is kind of a new reality, but it does go away, and it is an extreme minority.
Now, I want to get your take on this, since you are very outspoken when it comes to the news. That's what you're great at. I talked to Kirk McEwen about this on his podcast, and I've talked to people from 98 Rock about it on my podcast, so I want to get your take. What is going on with Baltimore, man? There are 300 murders this year, and no one's talking about it. It's a major market. Don't you find it sad that this town is going down each day, or is it something where it's just been like building up over years? What is your take on the madness in Baltimore?
Well, that's a long, complicated question and answer.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Baltimore is a great city, and I don't know that it's going to hell in a handbasket. I know that it has some serious problems. Yes, they have been building up for a long time, in answer to that part of your question. And a lot of it has to do with, 10, 15% unemployment among young black men. So part of the problem is jobs. The lack of education, the lack of training. These otherwise potentially productive citizens have nothing else to do. And of course, there's the drug problem as well, which certainly exacerbates things. What was it? I read a jaw-dropping number of pharmacies were looted and robbed during the riots and demonstrations that followed the Freddie Gray decision not to charge the officers. And so that released a lot of prescription drugs on the streets that the gangs who sell the drugs began fighting over. And so, again, more murders. I don't think a lot of everyday upstanding Baltimore citizens are being killed. I'm not saying innocents have indeed been lost, including children, and that's a horrible thing. But this is a lot of this is kind of a drug war. And so it's very unfortunate, and there has been systemic racism in the Baltimore Police Department and in its jails, in the county's jail system. So until some of those problems are straightened out, things are going to be a little less perfect in Charm City.
What type of town is it like? It seems like one that doesn't get enough credit. I've heard it's a nice town, but it just has bad parts. Because I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, Baltimore's the new Detroit and the new Camden, New Jersey. And even though I'm not from Baltimore and I have no reason to defend Baltimore, I was offended that he would say that. Because to me, I don't think Baltimore's that bad. What's it like?
Well, I've never lived there. I've visited there many times. Like I said, I think it's a great and beautiful city with indeed charming people. I think it's a city. I know the small town I live in now has neighborhoods with homes I could never afford in my wildest dreams, and it has homes that I feel sad for the occupants because it's barely a shack. I'm lucky enough to live somewhere just above the middle line, I think, in all that. But yeah, my point is that every town, big and small, has good parts and bad parts. I think the bad parts get bigger when there's when there are education, job training problems, and a lack of jobs, because then they have nothing better to do. And believe me, if these guys thought they could make a living, not minimum wage, but if they thought they could make enough to feed their families, they would rather be doing a legal job than a dangerous and illegal job, like being part of a drug gang.
Do you think things will keep on getting worse? Or is there going to be some light at the end of the tunnel where it's like enough is enough? How is this going to go down? Because I just think things are going to keep getting worse with gang wars.
Well, I can't take that fatalistic an approach.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to flip a switch and make it go away. A lot of things need to be addressed. Like I said, education, job training, drug abuse counseling and help, then treatment. These are the things that it's going to take, and it's going to take time. And people are outraged by this, and they will. They're slow, though. People are slow to catch on, sometimes slow to move. But I think actually things will get better, not worse. That's what I think. A lot of that depends on the economy.
Now, what do you think about this upcoming election? Now, I've been the guy in this interview where I've been the negative one, and Buzz, you've been the one that's given me hope for life. Should I be nervous about people like Trump and Hillary Clinton, or is this going to work out in the end? How do you see this going down?
Well, let me put it this way. If I had my druthers, it's tough. It's tough. I really, really like Bernie Sanders and what he is saying. And like I said, he has a tremendous support among young people, voters between the ages of 18 and 29 make up about 50% of the people who vote. The millennials you were speaking of and younger, that's half the voting power. Of the people who actually go to the polls, half of them are millennials, are in that age group. And and they support Sanders. So it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out. I think Hillary will probably win. She is not my favorite, but I would be okay with that.
She's the worst. She is the worst.
Some people think that. I don't agree. I don't think she's the best, but I don't think she. I think when you look at somebody who has foreign policy knowledge and experience, she's hands down the best candidate of either party. And with the world in the state that it's in, that might not be a bad thing. I also appreciate very much her intentions toward income fairness. I think that's very important. I don't think she's as good as at that as Sanders, but there are things about her I don't like that you and I probably share that we don't like about her. But I think you could do worse especially with things the way they are.
Now, I want to ask you this. I was watching a YouTube video, and now I know nothing about this, and I love listening to your show because I feel like I am learning something. I just don't know where to turn to when it comes to voting and things like that. But I was watching a YouTube video, and it was 10 minutes of times that she has been hypocritical. 10 years ago, she said, I'm not for gay marriage, essentially. She said marriage is between a man and a woman. All the other examples kind of went over my head. Now, what I want to ask you is she no different than anybody else that is running? Do they all lie? Or is it a thing where a 10-minute video, should that be alarming?
Well, first of all, those weren't necessarily lies. A person can change their opinion. Now, I do think
true.
I do think that she changed her opinion to fit with the direction the political winds were blowing. When the majority of Americans were against gay marriage, she was against gay marriage. When the poll numbers shifted, putting the majority of Americans in favor of it, then she switched to being in favor of it. Is that lying, or is that just the art of politics?
I think it's the second one.
I think everybody sees it for what it is. She changed because the wind changed. But you know what? That's okay, because in a way, she's representing the views of the majority of the American people, and isn't that what elected officials are supposed to do? So, to a large degree anyway, unless they're president and they have to decide what's best for the country at a given moment, then they might not want to pay attention to the polls. But to listen like that and to move accordingly on your position might be a good thing. And as far as you can find videos for anybody, I mean,
that's true.
I like I said, I don't think necessarily. She doesn't strike me as the most honest person in the world. I think I have the same trust issues with her that you do. But it just seems to me that she might do the job pretty well when I look at, who's qualified for it. Again, she is not my first or favorite choice by any stretch of the imagination. She's not a dream candidate for me. I don't think she's going to change the country for the better. But I think she won't screw it up the way I'm pretty sure Donald Trump or Ben Carson and maybe most of the other Republican field would.
Man, did you hear what Ted Cruz said? He basically said, say it to my face, Obama, acting like a hard ass and a tough guy. That's when I was like, there's nobody on the Republican side that's respectable. I mean, I just find it ridiculous, all the hate that Barack Obama gets. Don't you agree, Buzz?
Well, it shouldn't be terribly surprising. I mean, I think some of it obviously is based on the fact that he's black. Some people just never adjusted to the idea, many people didn't accept the idea that a black man had been elected president. That's part of it. Part of it is they just think he's like the ultimate liberal and therefore is evil. Not that liberal is a bad thing necessarily. So this has been going on for some time. They were not this mean to Bill Clinton, but that's kind of when the meanness started, and it's really intensified. They said the Republican leadership in Congress said when Mitch McConnell said when Obama was elected, our number one job over the next 4 to 8 years is to make sure nothing he wants gets passed.
How do you think he's done overall?
Even if it's I was disappointed. I was hoping for more change from Obama, and we didn't see it. I realized soon afterward that I just elected another president. He's
right.
just another president. Now he's done some things I'm very proud of with the environment, the Keystone Pipeline, and those kinds of things. I give him high marks for that. He's done some things I'm not proud of, like stepping up in the early part of his presidency, at least, stepping up the domestic surveillance and that sort of thing. So there are things he's done with which I disagree, and things which I'm very grateful for. But to a large degree, I'm disappointed that he wasn't the sort of political messiah I was hoping for.
What grade would you give him? I would give him a B- just because I think he did what he could.
Yeah, I think I'd give him a B.
Yeah.
So maybe a half tick above that. I'd love to give him a higher grade, and maybe I will in the rearview mirror. we'll see. We'll see.
And now, before I let you go, Buzz, where can people find your work online?
They can't. It's you have to go to the dark web.
Right?
I'm kidding, of course. No, it's at buzzburbank.com. That's BUZZ Burbank, BURBANK, buzzburbank.com. Buzz Burbank, all one word. And that'll take you to a web page where you'll hear it, or just open up your iTunes and go to to podcast and search for Buzz Burbank, and boom, there I am, and you subscribe, and it's free, and suddenly your life is better.
Well, Buzz, 10 years ago, I was listening to you guys on 106.7 Free FM in Chicago. I wasn't even in D.C., and if you would have told me back in 06 that I would have Buzz Burbank on my podcast, I would have got so giddy. So this has been a fun 45 minutes, and we definitely should meet up sometime since we're both in the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Ryan. I'd like that very much, and I want to have a meet and greet in the area because I already have some Tampa Bay listeners, and now that I'm here, I want to get even more. So I'm hoping the folks listening to your show will give what I do a try. And like I said, even if you don't agree, hopefully I will entertain you. I do a lot of human interest stories and those kinds of things, too, that people find very entertaining. I love to be a storyteller. Yeah. And so, if nothing else, tune in for that part of it.
And what I love about you just now is you made me have some hope. During this interview, I was the one that was saying fake outrage. I was the one that was saying we're doomed. But now I'm about to leave, go eat, and I'm going to be happy, Buzz. I have hope now because of you.
Now it's the Ryan Hoppe Hour.
Right? Well, Buzz, thank you for coming on Hoppe Hour. This has been a blast.
Oh, and before I go, I'm so sorry, but I promised to give a shout-out to our one of our co-hosts on the Kirk McEwen show, Big Al Cieslak. Kirk was on your show.
Oh, yeah,
recently,
I heard that.
Ryan, and he forgot to. He and Al have been friends for like 25 years, and Kirk didn't even remember to mention him. So I promised Al that I would give him a shout-out. Great guy, Big Al Cieslak, part of our show at the Kirk McEwen Show. I'm sorry, but I had to keep that promise. He gets excited, but he loves Al, and so maybe this is a way of conveying that. I do too now.
Well, Buzz, have a great rest of the night, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ryan. Congratulations on the success of your podcast and the acknowledgement it's got. Like I said, you were meant to do this, buddy. Just hang in there and keep doing it.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
You too, Ryan. Take care.
All right, bye.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.
This is an official broadcast of Hoppe Radio. For more info, check out hopperadio.com and hoppesworld.com.